Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today's going to be a little bit of a different video. I wanted to show you my tune on boot mode and how I went about creating that. So I am not a tuner. I don't have a ton of experience. I've done a couple things here and there over the years with Cobb and some other stuff, some stuff for Audis. But I've been trying to teach myself how to tune and get my own tune working on my car so I can learn to be more self-sufficient. If I'm at the track and I need to make some changes on the fly, I can do that myself without having to reach out to a tuner or have multiple maps laying around that I paid for that I have to upload whenever I need to make any kind of changes. That's the reason why I wanted to teach myself, and I figured I would show you guys how I went about that. So far it's going pretty good. My car runs and drives on the map that I have, that I built myself. My AFRs are great. Everything looks okay for how it is now. As I mentioned in the previous video, that I do have to make some changes once I start building more boost. Obviously I'm going to have to add more fuel and make some tweaks after that. But the base tune I have now is working great. It's pretty much along the lines of a stage 2 off the shelf map. I have some ignition advances and some more fuel. I've changed my AFRs to be a little bit leaner on spool, things like that. I'm sure you're all familiar with boot mode. If you have a BMW or if you're watching this video, I'm sure you at least know how to flash a tune on a car. So I'm not going to go through that process. There's a million videos out there. I actually have not been able to find too many about actually tuning on boot mode itself. So I hope this one helps other people out if they're trying to get into tuning or at least learn how to tune their own car. It's really not that difficult. I taught myself, I mean, it took me maybe a month or so to kind of go through and start figuring out how things worked and what I can and can't change and what that pretty much affects on my car. So to get started here, I don't know if you have to be a tuner. I went ahead and set myself up a tuner account and then reached out to boot mode and then set myself up here as a tuner shop. They just asked you some basic questions on how to tune and what you're using it for, and that was pretty much it. It took me about maybe a week to get that done. I don't think you need that to get to the map editor. That's what we're going to be working in today, but that is the process that I went through. So to get started, really, you're just going to go into the map editor and you should only see a stock tune here. That's going to be the stock tune for your car. Just make sure that that matches the engine type here. And then for the N20 with the external waste or electronic wastegate, this is the latest ROM version. I am not sure what it is for the pneumatic one, so it might be different. But if you're not on the latest ROM, make sure that you reach out to the boot mode guys and ask them to update that for you. So I had to do that. I was on a super old ROM. If you can see the top one here, this 537695, that was my original tune that I started building, and there was so many problems with that thing. Parameters weren't loading right. I was having issues with changing the DTCs, and I just had all kinds of problems. So I reached out to those guys. They updated it to this one, and it's been great ever since. So where you want to start is click on stock tune. That's going to load up the base tune for your car. This is completely stock. There's no changes in here. This is what comes from the factory that is loaded on your DME from when you buy it brand new. You'll notice at the top here it said this is your stock map. It's read only, so if you go in here and you start making a bunch of changes and doing all these things, it's not going to let you actually save any of that. So I can type some stuff in here, and then when you go to hit commit, it's going to give you an error message. So what you need to do is go, let me close this one. Go back to the stock tune, and then you want to go up here and hit file and save as, and then we're just going to make a copy of this. You can name this whatever you want. I'm just going to put copy at the top, and then once you do that, you'll notice that that red banner's gone, and now you can actually make changes and start adjusting the parameters of your tune. These are the base parameter groups you'll see here from top to bottom. This is going to be where you go in and make your actual changes. It took me a while to go through. I really went through every single one of these and read all of this descriptions of each and tried to figure out exactly what each one does. Some of the descriptions are pretty vague, some of them don't have descriptions, and some of them are super self-explanatory. So there's only a few things in here that you really need to change to get your car running, at least the basics past the stock tune. So if you have an intake and things, there's some settings in the math area where you can go and change the correction. So if you click on mass flow correction overload and you go to the description, It'll tell you to increase by 5% depending on how big your intake is, how much more air you're pulling into the system, and you kind of just go and adjust for there. So lower RPMs, 1250, 1500, so 800 RPM to 1500, and then you have your load, which is 15 to 200. You just want to increase that by 5%, and that should get you where you need to be. So same with this one, mass flow correction, that's going to be the same. So if you have an aftermarket intake, this is where you would go to change that, and it shows you right here in the description on what that does and why that does that. So there's another section in all of these tables here that say related tables. These are all the things that are tied to the MAF sensor, or say if you're changing boosts, it'll be tied to the wastegate, duty cycle, things like that. You don't really have to go in and click any of this unless you're making some really fine tweaking in the tune. Most of the things that you need to change are going to be right here on the main tables. But this is the same thing, related tables. There's a little button right here that says related tables. You'll see all the same lists here. So I'm going to close that. And then I think before we get too far, I just want to say that obviously anything I'm showing you here is not going to be what you need to do for your car. If I have anything that I show you that I've done on my car, it's going to be completely different for yours. So just make sure you're not copying this number for number. It's not going to match up. My car is completely different, fully custom. I have a big turbo. I have different injectors. I have no maps or MAP sensor. I'm using map only, so I'm speed density. There's just so many different things on my car that are not going to work for yours, so just make sure that you keep that in mind when I'm going through showing you this stuff. So when I went to create my tune, I really just went through, like I said, and I opened up all of these. I read each single one to figure out what they did and what effect that would have on my car. So this one here is going to control your boost, obviously. So everything under this is going to be boost control. So your boost bias, this is going to be your base boost pressure, and it says that there in the title. And then if you go to the description, it'll tell you the same thing. Modifies in sport, eco, and then comfort. So you can go through and change that here. The only thing with all of these are, from what I found going through everything, changing all these different settings, is everything on here works on a calculation. So if you were to go in here and you were just to change this boost pressure, it's not gonna work how it should. I mean, it'll probably increase the boost, but you also need to go through and increase your load settings and your map settings and your MAF sensor and your ignition timing and all the other things. Everything is related. So if you go in and change one thing, it's going to be changed. I mean, it relies on a lot of other calculations from a lot of different things that need to be adjusted as well. So it sounds like a lot, but like I said, I did not know anything about tuning a month ago, and I've just kind of walked through all this myself, figuring it out, figuring out how it works. I have reached out to the boot mode guys quite a bit, and they've helped, as well as Navardi Tuned, like I mentioned in some of the other posts, that he's been helping me with a lot of questions and stuff. So there's a community out there. There's not a lot of people that do tuning, and there's also not a lot of people that share any information, which is crazy. I haven't really found anything online that has any step-by-steps or anything on what you need to do. So really what I've been doing is just going through each one of these, and if I didn't understand what it was, I would try to Google it. I would look through the help articles on boot mode and figure out what it did and what effect it would have on my car. So one thing is that you're not really going to mess anything up unless you take your ignition and you change your base ignition and put this out like 100. You'll notice there's a pretty broad range from -15, -20, whatever, all the way up into 55. As long as you don't hit past these limits up towards the top, I mean, I felt like that's pretty safe for me. And really all you want to do is change things in small increments, and I've mostly been doing them in percentage value. So if you say like you want to take an area at the bottom of your RPMs and you want to increase the ignition timing to give you a little bit more timing advance, just a tiny bit more torque, you can just grab a whole section of values here, and then you can just say like I want to add 5%. And then you just hit the +% by 5, and that just adds 5% to all those values here. One thing that I have been doing is I go back, if I do a percentage change, I'll go back and make it a half or even number. I'm pretty sure that doesn't matter, but I just want to keep it clean and consistent with the rest of the map. And yeah, so that's just how I've been doing it. So Now that you have the basics on kind of what this table is and what everything looks like, I'm going to go ahead and show you my map that I've created and all the parameters that I've changed just to get my car running and working the way that it is now. So I'm going to go ahead and close this map. I'm going to open up the stock tune again. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to import my tune on top of the stock tune, and it'll tell you all the parameters that I've changed and what those values are. So if you click on open and import again, I'm going to load up this one. This is my most recent map. You can see today is the 19th, and the last time I updated this was the 17th, so a couple days ago. So I'm going to hit import here. If you hit open, it's just going to close the stock map and it's going to open up your map. So I'm going to hit import. That's going to import all these changes that I've made on top of the stock map, and then you'll be able to see what those look like over here. So if you look at the menu now, you'll see a bunch of red items over here. These are all the changes that I've made to my map versus the stock map. So there's some boost target things I've changed. So since I use an external wastegate, the boost settings don't really make that big of a difference. All I'm doing is setting my target for the boost, and then my external wastegate and my external boost controller try to hit those targets. So I want to make sure that the target is higher, so it's adding the correct amount of fuel, things like that. But I'm not actually going through and changing the traditional wastegate settings that you do, like duty cycles and things like that, because my wastegate is not controlled by the tune. It's controlled by that external controller. So lambda, that is going to be your AFR. So my lambda I have set at 9.9 for lower RPMs, and then once you get up into the higher RPMs in the boost range, it gets a lot lower, so you want it to have a little bit richer. So you have the cooling effect of your fuel, things like that. If you have it too lean, it's going to get super hot, it's going to burn up your pistons, and you're going to have a lot of problems. So one thing you need to make sure is that your AFRs are in a good area, so 14.5 to 12, even sometimes down to 11.5 when you're running super hot and you're getting into a lot of boost and you have a lot of load. So most of the tables in your tune, you're going to see that the top's going to be the RPM, left side's going to be the load, it's going to be the PSI, things like that. But most of the time you're going to have your load on the left hand side. That's going to be the amount of air essentially that's going into your engine. So a lot of these changes aren't critical. There's a bunch of them in here that are just related to like error control, things like that, I guess. This one here is maximum threshold starting torque. So if you click on the description again here, it's just going to tell you it modifies the maximum allowed starting torque. Increasing this value is going to help on launches. So say that I am power braking and I go to launch the car and the torque is over 200. So that was the original value. I changed it to 250. So say it's over 200, it's going to spin, or it's not going to spin, sorry. It's going to give me an error message saying that I'm over torquing, and it's going to put me into limp mode. So since I don't want to go into limp mode on the launch, I want to make sure that I have good power and it's not going to shut the car down. I increased that value just to 250. So there's a lot of things like that you can go through here and change. Let's see, there's some other things like air mass limitation. That's going to be the amount of mass that's going past your map sensor, things like that. If you get too much air volume and your tune's not set for that, you're going to get error message and get you into limp mode. Alright, so I'll go through a few of these to show you kind of the basics on what you need to get started. Really what you want to do is adjust your fuel and the amount of air that's being metered going into the engine. So the fuel thing is going to be the most important, and then later on, once you get a little bit better with getting your AFRs in the right area, you can start changing the ignition timing and going down into your Vanos and doing valve overlap, and start making a little bit more changes to kind of dial everything in and get everything exactly where you want it. So the main areas for your fuel are going to be right here. This is going to be the amount of fuel essentially that's going to be going into your engine for using E85. So if you have an E85 tune and say you're using like a E30 blend, you're going to want to change this to like 1.15 or 1.2 depending. Really this is going to be different for every car, every fuel type, all that stuff, because my E85 here in Colorado is like 62 or something. Sometimes it's even lower than that, sometimes it's higher than that. So this is going to change quite a bit depending on where you are and the quality of gas you have. But essentially what this does is it's a multiplier for adding a little bit more fuel when you have a higher octane gas. If you go in here, it'll tell you that same thing. Modifies the fuel for given RPM and load. Increase if running in ethanol blends. It says log short-term fuel trims, and if your short-term fuel trims are high, increase this value. So short-term fuel trims, that's going to be on your data logs. Let me open this up here. Just duplicate. So on your data logs, if you're, don't mind this is just a bunch of crap I've been doing testing and all that stuff. So right here, short-term fuel trims are at 1.13, so that means that I don't have enough fuel going into the engine during this RPM load. So what am I at? 4,700, and I'm in 4th gear, so I'm making a pool. So I probably need to add some fuel around the 4,700 mark, and just to get this back to 1. So your short-term fuel trims you want to have as close to 1 as possible throughout your whole drive, so every RPM range. And this map, or this 3D table right here, is going to help you achieve that. So that, along with there's another one in here that I haven't made any changes to, which is a correction factor. You can also change that. So if you go into fuel and then your correction factor here, so this is another table. You can adjust this either way, left or right, so I mean up or down, sorry, to in any given RPM range. So this is 3,900 all the way up to 9,000 RPMs, which we don't ever see that, obviously. And then this is going to be the injection time. So, or maybe that's the injection time. Yeah, that's probably what that is. These are backwards. So this map is backwards. I'm actually not sure if this one even works for the car. Sometimes I'll see this going through some of these values here will be super messed up, or they'll actually be 0, or there'll be nothing in this field. These will be filled out and this is completely empty. So I assume those don't work on this particular engine or this particular build. It just depends. There's a couple in here for E85 if you have a hybrid N20, which I don't even think they make those in America. There's nothing in here for you to change for that. So some of these aren't being used. I think that's probably why I don't have this filled out. But if you go back in here to this one, this is going to be the one where you're really going to adjust the amount of fuel going into the engine at any given RPM. So you can see it goes from 700 all the way up to 7,000, and then it goes off your load. That's also going to be a value on your data logs. So really what you're doing is you're getting a base tune in there, you're going for a drive, you're checking your AFRs, you're checking your fuel trims, and then you're going back to your map to figure out how to adjust those to make them the correct value. So again, you want this to be at 1. You can see it go all the way to negative 0.70, so it goes 30% each way, so it'll be 1.30 or 0.70. If it's 0.70, you need to take fuel away, it's too rich. Or if it's leaning, below 1, then it's a little bit too rich. If it's leaning above 1 up to 1.3, then it's too lean and you need to add fuel. So what you're going to do again is you're going to find the RPM. So this is 5,000. We're still a little bit lean, so we need to go through there and add some more fuel around the 5,000 mark. So as I mentioned, I haven't gone through and tweaked all of my stuff yet. I've just been kind of slowly working on this. This is actually a newer tune that I just started working on a couple days ago, so I haven't had a chance to dial in the fuel stuff just yet. And like I mentioned before, I'm still waiting on my intake manifold stuff, or exhaust manifold stuff, to get all that sorted out. All right, so back to fuel. So that's going to be pretty much it for the fuel stuff. This is your stoichiometric ratio. So the stock comes at 14.1 for some reason instead of 14.7. It's the same as what is on my tune. For some reason it thinks it's different, but I just left it at that. Okay, so that's the fuel. Maybe put changes only. This is going to be the set point for your AFR. All right, so what I do is I have a page with a bunch of different things. So this is AFR and Lambda calculator. I'll put these links to all the tools I use in my in the video description there also. So This is kind of what helps me figure out what I want to put in these boxes here. So at any given RPM, say down at 500 just idle, I want it to be sitting around like 14.2 to 14.5. This is where you would change that, and this kind of helps you get there. So right now my AFR fuel type, I think I have about E40 in there. I put a bunch of E85, but like I said, the gas here in Colorado is terrible, so it's really hard to tell without having a like a flex fuel calculator or whatnot. So let's say it's 14.0, and I want my desired AFR to be 14.2. It's going to tell me what I need to put in here to reach that. So 14.5, 103. So if I want to do, say, like 13, if I'm doing a pool, that's going to change it out to 9.2. And then that's when you would go in here and edit these fields here. So right now I want it to be around 14, so it's at 9.90, and I have it at 14.0 as my my ratio in the other field. So that's going to calculate this to be, say, about 14 going through. And so depending at, let's see, we're at idle here. So yeah, so if you look at my lambda at idle, it's about 13.9, 13.8. So that's about where I want it at 14. So there's target bank 1 and target bank 2. To be honest, I'm not sure what the difference is between, because I don't have an 8-cylinder car. There's not a side 1 and side 2, or a bank 1 and bank 2 as far as I know. So I just make these both identical just to make sure that there's no issues with how I've set that up. Alright, so that's the fuel, the boost, load. This is going to be pretty much your torque. The load is how much power is in the engine, how much load is being produced by the engine. So mine, that I've noticed, it never goes over 70, 80, just because I can't build any boosts yet. So once it does, once I do start building boosts, I'm going to be able to hit this 140 to 180 range, and then I'll start making some changes up here. Like I said, I usually sit around like 15 all the way up to 70 or 80, and that's kind of where I made my changes for now, just to get a little bit low in torque and to make things a little bit more peppy on the bottom end. And again, I made the same change on my torque reference 2, so this is going to be 1 and 2. I don't really know what the differences between these tables and why there are 2 and which one is being used when, just because they're identical. So I just copied the same values from this one to the second one, and that's kind of what I've been doing on all the tables that I've been adjusting that were multiples, unless there were different parameters on them, like eco mode or comfort mode, things like that. So the MAF, like I mentioned, I don't have a MAF anymore, so my calculation switch, I did change this. It is now at 0 because I am not using the MAF to calculate the air volume. I'm using my MAP sensor. So there's a couple changes for that need to be made. If you are going to delete your intake, you're going to go straight speed density. My turbo is too big to fit an intake and a MAF sensor, so that's why I went ahead and deleted that. And it's been working pretty good for me now. So there's a couple different things you can change in here as well. So mass flow correction overload, that's going to be the same for an intake. If you have more air going through your engine than what your engine is expecting, you're going to get an error code. If you make some changes to these tables here, it's going to allow you to get past that. So this is going to be, again, if you have an intake, or like in my case, I have an open intake, there's literally no filter or anything on there, it's just a turbo screen. So my car is sucking in a lot more air than yours, and if I didn't have these changed, I would get error messages there. So there's a math calculation switch that's going to change it from the intake manifold onto, or sorry, from the intake to the intake manifold. There's a map switch, so that's what this does, is changes it to the map. And then there was another switch I made somewhere else for the map to get it to calculate correctly and change how it read everything. So instead of going from the map, it goes to the map, and everything's been working fine. Torque stuff, you can change all that. Really, it's just going to be preference, how you want your car to take off from the line. But yeah, so that's going to be pretty much the top down, very high level, super easy. So that's going to be a pretty high level of some things that I've changed on mine that, like I said, that's helped me getting my tune together. The car runs fine now. I don't have any issues except a couple lean spots or a couple rich spots here and there that I have to go smooth out through my AFR tables, the target tables here, and also my fuel. So again, like I said, I just taught myself how to do this. I was just researching everything. I went through all of the different tables here, all the things I needed to change, and pretty much looked at everything and just figured out what it did and if it made sense to change it or not. So the wastegate duty cycle stuff, again, since I don't have a wastegate or an electronically controlled wastegate, I haven't messed with any of this stuff. I really haven't needed to. The boost is controlled, like I said, by the external wastegate, so that's all controlled by the boost controller. And then yeah, I really didn't change anything else. No cooling stuff, that's all basic, same stuff. Engine speed is changed through your map configuration. I'll go through there and show you that in a second. The load stuff, this is going to be, like again I said, your torque. You're going to want to change some of these things if you want your torque tables to be a little bit different, how you request torque, how early it comes on. And then there's going to be some, let's see. Yeah, I mean, you can change anything. You can see all the stuff. Startup, you can change the startup roar sounds, like all the stuff you can change in the map config, you can change here on this side. So it's pretty self-explanatory. Like I said, it's not terribly hard to figure out yourself. As long as you're careful and you make small changes, you're really not going to break anything. You would really have to make some drastic stuff like valve overlap, crazy things like that, or you know, change your ignition timing to 100 to actually make any problems. Yeah, so that's all the changes I've made. You can get a quick little, I guess, look at what those are. Like I said, they're not, I'm not going to show you all the values because everything's going to be different. That's just kind of what I have going so far to get my car running how I want it to run. One other thing in here is you can go into the map config for this. This is going to be the same as if you hit the settings or configure when you're about to flash this. So you'll see all the same settings here. So exhaust burble, the roar, max cooling mode. One other thing that you might notice is different now if you come in here is this electronic wastegate. As I mentioned in my other video, I was working with the boot mode guys and they actually put this in here for me because I was having a hell of a time trying to delete my wastegate through the tune. And I just kept getting error message. I was disabling the plug and all kinds of different stuff, and I just could not get past it. So they were awesome. Took them maybe like 3-4 days. Came in and they added this to the config settings. So if you want to go big turbo and you want to change your wastegate from internal to external, you really just need to go and adjust this and hit yes. That's going to disable it, and then all your error messages and everything will be gone. So that's pretty much gonna be it, I think. Like I said, I was gonna split this up in 2 parts, but I didn't realize it was gonna be that fast. I really don't have too much to show you other than what I've done for myself and how I went about kind of learning how to tune in here. If you guys do have any questions or suggestions or anything like that, I'm not a professional, but if you want to reach out, I can help you kind of get started where I got started, and then just give you some basic answers. I know there's not a lot of resources out there, but if you want to try it out, I would say just go for it, man. Create a copy of a tune, change some things, upload it to your car. If it doesn't run right or you're really stumbling, you can run a log, see exactly what the problem is. If your AFRs are too rich or too lean, you can go in and change the fueling and adjust that. And then once you get your car running, you can take it for a drive, do a data log, and then you can really see exactly what needs to be changed. And then once you get all that figured out, just start doing some ignition timing and start, you know, changing some other stuff, some valve overlap, stuff like that. That's kind of what I did. I started off super basic with just the fuel and the air ratios, and then I kind of went off and started doing all the other stuff, changing the boost targets and changing the torque curves and all that stuff. And I really just taught myself how to do all this within, you know, 2-3 months of just kind of poking around. I hope this helps. If anybody wants to see any more information or any more detailed stuff, I'd be happy to make another video. Just let me know. Like I said, I'm not a professional. You know, if you're a tuner and you see something that looks crazy out of place, shoot me a message. I would really appreciate it, because I don't want to steer anybody in the wrong direction. But I am going to give you a warning. If you guys make all these changes and something breaks, I am not responsible for it. That's going to be on you. I haven't done anything to my car that I haven't been able to fix, and like I said, it's been running great. So alright, so I forgot to show you guys one thing. I'm recording this after the rest of the video, but I'm probably going to splice it in somewhere. But on here, if you guys want to get a sense of what parameters need to change for your car and you don't have the N20, there are some system provided maps here that I forgot to show you. So you'll see the list of system provided free maps. These are a bunch of maps for a ton of different cars that you can come in and actually load into your boot mode and take a look to see what changes were made. So some of the stuff that I did was I imported this B48. Obviously it's a different engine, but it's the only one that was close enough to the N20 that I can actually get some info from. So I imported this map on top of my stock map and was able to see what changes they made, different things that the boot mode team had done to you know, the ignition tables, the boost maps and things like that. So it helped me a lot to learn pretty much the basics. But if you have the S55, the N55, B48, or the B58, like there's a bunch of different engines in here that you can kind of go and import into your stock map to see the changes. So I'll show you how to do that real quick. And so mine's a stock tune. I'm able to import these maps, but I get a bunch of error messages just saying the map's not compatible. Sorry, wrong place. You won't see that if you obviously import the right one. So right now I have my stock tune installed. I'm going to click on the system provided free maps, and then I'm going to go and install the B48 because that's the most similar engine to mine. You guys probably have the N55 or you know, the S55 or some of the newer stuff in here that you can actually import the correct engine, and then you can see everything identical to your stock map. So if you click on that to import, it's going to give you an error message saying that there is it's incompatible, but I'm just going to click through that and it'll actually let me install or import the parameters for the B48. So on here, if the check mark is white, that means that this table exists in the stock map. If it's grayed out, that means the table does not exist. But I can go through and select all, and I can actually import the tables for these parameters into the N22, and they're not going to do anything. They obviously won't work because these map IDs don't exist. There's nothing to map it to. So what I was doing was just leaving the existing tables that existed and just click on import. And you'll see the same thing that you saw when I was on my map. These are the changes only. Obviously, all of these are going to be different because it's a completely different car, completely different engine, but it at least gives you an area to kind of start at. You can see ignition tables for my car and this car. They're really not that far off. So this is the N20 and this is the B48. So I really just adjust things a little bit from left to right. So that was great for me to learn some ignition timing tables and how to change some of that stuff. There was the torque tables and things were very similar actually between both cars, so I was able to make some changes there. The valve overlap and well, both valve overlaps are very similar also. There wasn't a lot that changed there, so I was able to see like how big a tweaks I could make without making a huge difference. So just long story short, that helped a lot. It was super easy for me to go in and kind of see the differences. So if that's something you want to do, that will definitely help you get started. That's way better than kind of just going and poking around. If you import a stock map that you have, if you happen to have one of the same engines, that's a great place to go and kind of start your tuning journey. So yeah, thanks. That's gonna be it for this one, I think, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and hopefully the next one's gonna be me building out that custom turbo manifold, and then we can start making some actual power, and then I'll come back in here and then get this the tune kind of figured out. But appreciate it. Thanks guys, and I'll see you in the next one.